hospital. And then, of course, looking externally at other areas in which we can fortify the hospital. At the same time, with Senator Rodriguez, he has a bill that, of course, I signed into law that looks at the different options for long-term sustainability. And it will take an effort between the administration and the legislature. And of course, I want to also add the 800-pound gorilla, but also the federal government, based on some of the mandates, both locally and federally, that have been imposed on the hospital. But we feel very good about this bill. Roughly on the borrowing, about half of it is on the immediate operational expenditure requirements, those monies that are owed to vendors, and we need to make good of that. The other half is on the repair work and capital improvements necessary as well. Remember, we have already the Z-wing that has been condemned. So one way or another, we've got to deal with the Z-wing. And so aside from repair work on the hospital, but a replacement to the Z-wing as well.
Is there any plans, or do you happen to anticipate when that bill might come down to the legislature?
Well, excuse me, what bill? We just.
Oh, I mean, no, sort of. I mean, it has to come in a bill form, right? To finance $100 million. Does that have to come in a bill, or?
Okay.
Is it still being worked on?
This is still being worked with our fiscal team and working with the legislature as well. So we look forward to presenting the bill to the legislature, but there's still the due diligence that is necessary. And we look forward to our fiscal team working with the hospital, working with not only the health chair, but also the finance chair of the hospital, of the legislature.
You mentioned in your State of the Island that if you do this now, or regarding this carrying a low interest rate, and if you do this now and then you guys have identified the repayment source, what is the repayment source?
So, well, first of all, for the certain portions of this, we're already paying a loan from the Bank of Guam, and we want to thank the bank for the services it's been rendering in terms of dealing with some of the issues of the past and paying payables. Again, this has been something that's been recurring, but part of this loan package will be to pay that off, and of course at a lower interest rate. So with that, we do have again the available funding sources, and I can give our fiscal people to give you more information on the entire package when it comes to the financing. So Lester, I don't know whether, or excuse me, Jay?
We'd actually be using Section 30 funds, additional Section 30 funds that would be coming in for the additional relocation for the building.
So that would be the repayment?
Yes.
There was an article in today's paper again showing justifying the long-term growth of Section 30, the submarine tenure is back in, and there was a enumeration of the crew, and that crew again is larger than the Frank Cable's crew. There's just a lot of potential growth in Section 30 that we feel very strongly will be able to support what it is that we're looking at in the future.
Right, but this again this is all part of the plan that we're still working on and putting together. And so in the next few months, anticipate that we'll be sending more information out as we further discussions with the legislature and the hospital.
Actually, I'd like to move in a more expedited manner as well, because we don't believe that there's that time element of months, particularly to the vendors that are owed monies by the hospital. So, we would like to work with the legislature and, of course, move through the legislative process so that we can get this financing. And again, it's number one to deal with the requirements of paying off vendors, and then number two, doing some of the capital improvements and renovations that are necessary for the hospital.
And a key factor in the governor's quest to be fiscally responsible is taking advantage of current low interest rates in the bond market. So again, there is that sensitivity to the current very favorable interest rates that we'd like to be able to take advantage of.
Governor, what are your thoughts about any concerns with bond borrowing, more borrowing for the hospital? Senator San Nicolas posted some concerns on his Facebook page about borrowing money and then beginning to he's tying it into the idea of the public-private partnership. He says, borrow 120 million for GMH and begin process to sell its money-making parts, question mark. And then he says, he believes that fails to solve the cash balance of GMH and it adds more burden to our people by making them pay the debt on assets to be sold.
I would like to see what resolutions or answers that the senator has. Obviously, he's been critiquing it, particularly into speculation. You know, I think we should let the gossip columnists deal with the speculation. He should focus on the solutions. There is an immediate requirement for $30 million to pay off vendors, and if the good senator has an answer to that, I'd like to see what it is. But I'm hoping, rather than just criticizing, he is the majority, that he's here for a resolution to solve the issues of the hospital. Again, we put in, I think this past year, about the local government, I'm talking to taxpayers of Guam, there's about a $20 million subsidy to the hospital. But even the 20 million subsidies that have been provided to the hospital are not adequate. And I go back to the mandates, not only locally, but federally imposed on this hospital and what its mission is. So we are doing, I think the taxpayers of Guam, the people of Guam are doing more than their fair share in terms of supporting this hospital. We are going to be looking towards the Congresswoman and the federal government to doing their share. At this point, they have not done their share. But I'm hopeful that the Senator St. Nicholas will come out with solutions to deal with the short-term issues of the hospital as well as the long-term sustainability issues of the hospital, rather than gossiping and rumor-mongering, but focusing on coming to solutions. That's why he's a senator. That's why he's a member of the majority and the chair of economic development.
Is there any merit to his concerns about, because you're mentioning that this is a lot of speculation. His
I
concern
think that's
seems
why
to
it was
be that he
important.
wants, the concern he's voicing is about borrowing money and then privatizing the hospital after. So sort of, you know, the people pay for these problems now and then the hospital gets privatized and whoever the private company is benefits from that.
I think it's important too, that's why it was important to have Claudio Faggi out there from GSA. This is, you know, if you take a look at his legislation, this is a process going for an RFI. And of course, there are other options laid on the table as well. So this is open and transparent. And I find it ironic that again, a member of the same party of the majority who has such an important responsibility is questioning the motives of his fellow colleague in the majority and questioning, I would assume, GSA and the government apparatus. You know, there is a movement towards trying to find a long-term sustainable solution. And rather than being one that is a gossip columnist, you should focus more on working towards solutions. You can speculate anything you want. The bottom line is we need to deal with the issues short-term with this hospital. Again, we put $20 million annually into this hospital, but they built a $30 million payable. And it is a critical mission of this hospital. We've done everything we could do, barring a lawsuit with the federal government, to get the monies that we believe is owed by the hospital, even based on current statutes. We're going to continue to press that hard. And we're going to continue to get the federal government to pay its fair share. But in the meantime, we've got to keep this hospital going, moving along. So again, I want to thank Senator Rodriguez, and I'm hoping again Senator St. Nicholas will work with his partners in the Democratic majority, as well as the whole legislature as a whole, together with our administration in coming up with solutions.
And I think that's one of the important things to note is this bond is part of a short-term solution that helps stabilize the finances of the hospital. So as we move forward and look at the long-term solutions, one of which is Bill 277, which was just signed into law, and other solutions that moving forward, we're in a better position to then put some of those long-term solutions in place. And then to speak to some of the financing, a portion of an existing bill an existing loan will be refunded. Is that correct, Wes?
It will actually be absorbed into the bond as part of the plan to actually assist us with reducing the interest on that and then freeing up the debt service currently going to that loan.
Right, so again, this is going to be another act that will help us save some money in interest rates.
Yeah, and further, Clint, to your comment relayed by Senator Nicholas, it's premature to say that we're privatizing the hospital. It's so premature. We have been working, the HMAT team, on internal and external solutions to be able to try to right-size the hospital, increase efficiencies. And as the governor mentioned, we will continue to have a mandate to service anybody regardless of their ability to pay. So when the governor talks about a continuous subsidization, that's going to happen because regardless of what we do, there's going to be that part of the pie that self-pay individuals that just don't have the ability to pay for medical care. So this community is bound to be able to service that group. And how are we going to pay for it? As the governor said, it's a federal mandate placed on our shoulders. So what we've really been striving hard to find ways to be able to improve efficiencies and then look at other options. So that's where we are. If privatization, if he thinks that we're doing something and it's already a done deal, I'd like to see exactly what it is that he knows, because we don't know that. We are doing what we think is best. The governor is going to have continual control as the governor of Guam and under his powers of the Organic Act. He has to ensure for the quality health care of the whole island. And that's what he's doing.
Okay, folks, we have time for one last question.
Okay, switch to the subject. Tax refunds, or sorry, not tax refunds. The district court order to pay the attorney's fees by April 18th. Is that going to be?
I said it from the beginning, and unfortunately how this has moved along, from the very beginning, and folks, I'm hoping you report and just have memories. Even in my transition team, the #1 priority when I got reelected was tax refunds. I found it ironic that the same legal counsel for the previous administration, who had been giving advice to the previous administration, not 2 months until as I'm governor, the day I sent a bill over to pay off tax refunds that were not incurred in my administration, but in previous years, the same law firm who had represented a government and gave advice to a government filed a class action lawsuit. And so we had to participate in this lawsuit. It's interesting too as how everything evolved, that we paid off the tax refunds, so it was a moot case. And so what this law firm did was it changed its complaint. And so the whole judgment was not on past due tax refunds. It was because of an arbitrariness of paying tax refunds. If you can recall, it wasn't only in our administration, it was in the Camacho administration and the Gutierrez administration, that when someone files on a certain date, that is the process of paying tax refunds. But because there was a delay of 3-4 years, sometimes even more, if someone had an emergency, let's say someone died in the family, or someone was fired, these hardship cases were coming up to administrations, and then what was occurring was tax refunds were being paid out, and those refunds because of these emergency cases. The court case was now one because of the arbitrariness of paying out emergency. So it's amazing that I'm surprised that the court allowed that complaint to occur. So here we are paying the court fees for a case which had to be amended halfway through the court proceeding. You never hear this in the media sometimes, but I always felt that this was, if not mischievousness or if not opportunity by a law firm, I felt that this was actually, I mean, if you wanted to be a conspiracy theorist, sure seemed like the same folks that were giving legal advice to administrations in the past that weren't paying the tax refunds, sure looked like, I consider mischievousness. But that being said, you know, we will follow the dictates of the court. I would much rather that we focus more on paying tax refunds, not paying legal fees. And thank goodness we've got an appeal. I also believe that with this appeal, with a very reputable law firm that sees the issues of inequality, when the federal government wants to treat Guam as an instrumentality of the federal government, it does. When it doesn't want to treat Guam as an instrumentality of the federal, it doesn't. And in the case of the legal fees, they've decided to treat us what seems to be outside the instrumentality of a federal government agency. If they had treated us consistently how they've done in the past, then sorry, lawyers, you don't get legal fees. So that's why this law firm is doing this pro bono. Unfortunately, I wish we had more noble law firms here in Guam that would also focus in the good of the people. But this message has been warped over the past few years, and all you have to do is have history in this island, common sense, and not be warped by agendas. And some of these editorial pages, I believe it was just agenda. But I'm willing to stand here and say, we are committed to paying tax refunds, and I'm going to guarantee everybody, we're going to pay tax refunds on time. And it ain't going to be because one senator tells me to pay. We were going to pay it from day one in our administration. It's not because a federal judge is going to say it, because this was a commitment we made in the transition of our administration. So with that, we're going to continue to fight. We disagree with how the court has moved forward, but unfortunately, they've given an order to pay, so we're going to pay.
All right.
I wish somebody.